part of the Washington, D.C. Opportunity Scholarship Program. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker says helping young people like this is why school reform is so badly needed.
We fail as a country, we fail as a nation, we fail as a society if any of our kids slip through the cracks. We've got to make sure every single one of them has the opportunity we'd want for our own children and our grandchildren and for our children to come.
Governor Walker was the keynote speaker at the 2011 National School Choice Summit in Washington, D.C. He took a little time to read this passage from Dr. Seuss.
Congratulations. Today is your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away. And as I usually do when I'm reading to second and third graders, I'll show you all the pictures there. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know. And you are the guy who will decide where you go. What I love about this book is it talks about the limitless potential of our young people.
He said the state of Wisconsin has taken steps to unlock a child's potential.
But because of our reforms, once it becomes effective via the courts, which hopefully will be in the next month, there is no more seniority. There are no more collective bargaining for work rules. There are no more of those any other issues out there. So all the things you've heard about, not just seniority, but what the temperature is in the classroom, whether or not there's carpeting on the floor, what the size and scope of the billboards are. There aren't going to be groups out there with the power to say we're going to put a grievance against that 86-year-old senior citizen who wanted to volunteer in Wausau to be a crossing guard, but the union filed a grievance again. There isn't going to be a group out there that can stand up and say they're going to defend the teacher in Cedarburg who was watching pornography on a school computer, and yet his union stood up and backed him out there. Instead, you're going to allow teachers to do what teachers really want to do, and that is educate kids, not worry about all those other things.
He said that's just part of the solution. He said the city of Milwaukee has something called the Parental Choice Program that allows low-income families to send their children to private schools like Eastbrook Academy.
Just the fact that we've had success over the past 20 years is great, and it's a wonderful thing to celebrate. But for us in the city of Milwaukee, we have 100,000 kids that we serve in the city of Milwaukee. Roughly 20,000 of them go to choice schools. But that means about 80% of the rest of our families are looking at some other option, the majority of which are going to our public schools, many of which are good, but many of which fail to live up to the standard that we expect for each and every one of our children in that community and in our state.
He said there are those who say the scholarship program doesn't work.
What is fundamentally clear is if you look at the students that historically have come into the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program, more often than not, they come in at a test level, a scoring level when it comes to reading and other core fundamentals lower than kids coming into the Milwaukee public school system. But yet in the end, and one of the most important outcomes of that is they're 17% more likely to graduate by the time they're done.
The governor said the bottom line is students can't afford not to graduate.
We know in the end, if you're not graduating, it used to be that just graduating was enough to get a job, and these days you've got to have a 2 or 4 year or some sort of post-secondary education component just to get a job in our society. If you're not making it through graduation, you're going to be another statistic when it comes to welfare, or worse yet, when it comes to the state prison system. That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable for any kid in any neighborhood, in any zip code. That's why we have to put all of our efforts behind reforming education for every kid in my state, in your state, all across the great United States.
He said an educated workforce is the key to economic recovery in our nation.
If you have an investment in your children and giving your parents and your families the opportunity to choose the kind of education that best suits them, you're not only going to see an advancement in terms of education and grades and outcomes, you're ultimately going to see a parallel advancement when it comes to the economy.
For a state like Wisconsin with a parental choice program and new education reforms, there's still more work that needs to be done. Walker says he looks to the work of former Florida Governor Jeb Bush.
One of the things I hope to replicate not only in choice schools, but in our public schools, in our charter schools, and all our schools, is doing something like Jeb did in Florida and saying, we're going to have an A+ plan for education. Let's actually grade our schools, not just on one high-stakes test, but on a series of legitimate and logical assessments. And then let's let every parent, Let's every student, let every community know exactly who's succeeding and who's not.
He doesn't want to stop there. Walker hopes to see his state create a special needs scholarship program, open more virtual schools, and find a way to open the parental choice program statewide and also allow it to include middle-class families.
We want to find a way to add the middle class as well. See, for years we've talked about the challenge that on one end of the spectrum, we've had the wealthy in our states and in our communities across the country who have school choice, who have the means, who have the ability. And over the last 20 years, at least for up to about 20,000 kids, and now hopefully many more, we've had low-income families who were given the same choice that those wealthy families have. But somewhere caught between are many of our middle-class families.
As these children showcase their talent, Governor Walker reminded people all students deserve a great school.
We're at a premium as people to stand up and say we need to make sure that every school in every community in every state is a great school.
In Washington, D.C., Teresa Rashid, EAG TV.